Olá, boa noite a todos e todas. Bem-vindos a mais um painel do Brasil Eco Fashion Week, edição 5 anos, inscrição de marcas e retrospectiva. Então, esse é o último painel do dia, com o título Plano Earth Logic em português, do Conceito à Aplicação. E hoje a gente tem uma convidada super especial com a gente, é a pesquisadora e autora Mathilda Tham. Então, agora eu vou trocar para o inglês para a gente receber a Mathilda. So feel so very welcome, Mathilda. Welcome again to our event.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here with Earth Logic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And we were very happy to have you with us on our last edition last year, holding the workshop about work logic along with co-author and fellow researcher Kate Fletcher. And this year we have some great news that there have just been launched the Portuguese version for the Earth Logic material, right? And I'm very happy I had the opportunity to give some help revising the Portuguese translation along with Lilian Berlin researcher. So that was a very rich experience for us. And that allowed me to make the whole read of the material in depth and taking a lot of coming closer to its details and its deepness, all the deepness the material has. And I have to testimony that there was a point in the material that I was feeling very emotional while reading Earth Logic. And in fact, it seems to me that is a manual for a new earth, right? I got emotional with this envision of a society that values fashion as a way for bonding human relations, for deepening culture, right? For valuing local traditions. And this is a very beautiful picture that you bring and you propose to us with the material.
Thank you, and we are so excited about this opportunity to come out in Brazil through Portuguese in this way, and for the help we've had, because obviously without in-depth collaboration this would not have been possible. So it's a real opportunity to share this work and to learn with you what Earth Logic can be as well, because we only know a bit about it. We will learn together with you and people. Yes,
super nice. And to make a quick introduction to Mathilda, she's a professor in design at Linnaeus University from Sweden. Mathilda is Swedish and has been living in the UK for 20 years already. And she's also affiliated with Goldsmith University of London. She was a member of the boards of MISTRA, the Swedish Foundation for Strategic Environmental Research, and the MISTRA Future Fashion Program. And her visionary work into research as activism, transdisciplinary co-creation, and fashion as futures making is published internationally. And she's co-founder of Union of Concerned Researchers in Fashion and co-author of the material we'll be speaking a little more about today, Earth Logic Fashion Action Research Plan. So making a little retrospective, Mathilda, Earth Logic was launched in the beginning of 2020. So could you tell us a little bit about the spread and the impact of the material since then?
Of course. Yes, so we launched Earth Logic at London Fashion Week in February in 2020, and we were very excited, and we had planned a tour in the UK, and then obviously COVID hit the UK, so we couldn't make the tour. So instead we made it all digital. And first we were a bit worried, but then through global media articles like in The Guardian and platforms like Atlas of the Future, we have reached over 1 million people worldwide since we launched. And we've also, through the digital workshops, been able to meet, we think, over 2,000 people in all corners of the world. And that includes citizens, designers, students, educators, industry, governance, and we've had amazing conversations, and we have learned so much, including at Brasil Eco Fashion Week. And so we know that Earth Logic has influenced evaluation criteria, development of curriculum, industry projects, media projects, reading groups, PhDs, and we get messages and conversations, and it's great to say that these ideas that we and other people have talked about for a long time, they are not viewed as illogical anymore. Instead, people think that it's business as usual that's illogical. So we can say we take a lot of hope from that. It seems that people want to have these conversations now. It's time.
Wow,
it's high time.
Super good to know. And just one more observation. You cited the COVID outbreak. That is something totally related to our reality, still related to our reality today. And there was this impression at the beginning of the pandemic that fashion wasn't something necessary anymore, as we were dealing with life-threatening subjects. And then fashion would jump into not being a priority anymore, and something that may seem as a futile thing. And I guess that Earth Logic show us this whole deep meaning for fashion, away from the idea that it only manifests within the industry realm, right? Within the industry sphere and the market sphere. So fashion is much more about humans' lives, about community, about expression, about identity, about language, right? So I suggest the reading of Earth Logic for the ones that felt this way during the pandemic, you know, in order for us to maintain this flame lightened, that fashion brings meaning to our daily lives, right? So this brought my attention while reading the materials, right? So maybe it's not a coincidence that all happens together and the material was launched during this period.
Yeah, I also think that COVID really showed us that fashion is very vulnerable because of all the system it depends on. So fashion is made all over the world, particularly in the global south, and then sent obviously to lots of places. So, and with China and with Italy and other places heavily affected already in the beginning of the epidemic, it was very difficult to maintain fashion activities. And I think what we saw, that it's the most vulnerable communities that are affected the most. And I hope we can see this as a really important kind of dress rehearsal for climate emergency, that we realize that we have these systems, we have all these livelihoods that we need to look after. And also, as you say, that fashion is much more than stuff. Fashion is also about helping out. And there were so many people who couldn't do their normal fashion activities, who started making masks and protective stuff, you know, who tried to help in different ways. So people want to play a part and be part of building the relationships that we need to have. And I think we need to remember that. And it put many of us also, I think, in a situation where we wanted to learn more and understand the world better as well when we experience this.
Perfect. And going a little bit straight ahead with this idea of widening the perspective, further industry and markets, each of the 6 holistic landscapes you present on the materials, or new values for fashion, are presented as containing an imperative to reshape the industry. But mostly the materials proposal shows that the industry is only one of the many sectors and spheres of life that guide fashion, as we were chatting now. So essentially what we need to do would be to widen our perspective about fashion's nature, right? So it's not a matter of be struggling within the idea of what is industry is in regards of fashion or is not. It's to have a wider look from what fashion means on its very root. So could you comment a little bit more on that, please?
Absolutely, that's right. We see it as really important to recognize that fashion is co-created amongst many different sectors and actors. So citizens make fashion, media does, education, research, industry, designers, makers, schools, teenagers, public spaces, governance, NGOs, and also all the other species, so not just humans. All of us make fashion and the meaning of fashion together. And then if we say that it's only industry who will make the change, that seems implausible. And also if we look particularly at the really big brands, to see the urgent change coming from them, which means like a massive U-turn, that feels unlikely. But if we start looking at not thinking of fashion as kind of synonymous or the same as industry, then we can recognize all the activities go on already in different places, and we can draw on so much more imagination and creativity, and then getting there in time seems much more likely. So we think that decentralization from industry of fashion to many different actors is so important for change to be possible.
Very nice insight, Mathilda. This brings resilience to what fashion means in all its wider meaning for humanity and society.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. It's the resilience, the flexibility and agility that comes from distributed power and agency as well.
Very nice.
Imagination.
And Earth Logic has a very strong educational approach and almost a didactic approach. You were suggesting all the time that it's a research action that we have in hands, and this must be put in practice, right? So and then you suggest that this content can be spread within different centers for fashion and to reinvent these centers where fashion will be manifesting, right? So I will read a quick excerpt that caught a lot my attention that speaks a little bit of that. Imagine an open fashion studio in the park, community center, library, reading group, cooking class. The fashion studio and fashion school has been turned inside out. Instead of scouting and bringing ideas and resources from the outside to fashion and commodifying them, now fashion offers itself to communities. Materials, equipment, skills are shared out. So could you speak of fashion as being this educational and community tool, even relatable to a language that could occupy different centers, Mathilda?
And I think one thing what we have noticed that people engage with is the idea of a shift from thinking, what's the business case for sustainability? That's the wrong question. We think that the right question is, what's the sustainability case for business or any other activity? So it's not about what can I get? What can I get? It's about how can I contribute? And then the question for fashion is, how can we contribute from within fashion to a world where planet is safe and all the species can survive and people have good livelihoods and safe and good lives. And then we think that fashion is amazing. There's so much to learn from fashion. There is so much around materialities and culture and skills and identity and group belonging. And particularly if we think of fashion as a verb and we want to think about fashion as care. So looking after the products, the objects, learning to mend things, learning to share things, then fashion becomes much more about relationships than about things. And then we think that's a great place to start for many of us who want to learn about sustainability in a more holistic and broader way. And we also know obviously that fashion engages lots of people. So and we all have it in our lives, whether we have invited it or not. To some extent we are working or dealing with clothes and fashion. So we really hope that many organizations and people can see fashion as a hub for learning that we can offer in different ways.
Wow, super interesting. And this inspired me a lot because I have moved just this last few weeks to the countryside, as I mentioned to you, and we are living now just by a national park here in the Serra of Rio de Janeiro, in Teresópolis. And we are close to this national park, and I just volunteered to give some help during weekends to the environmental educational area of the park, and they have a visitors center where activities can be held. Obviously not now, still while during quarantine and pandemic, but we hope that in a while things get okay, so then people can visit again. And I was already thinking, wow, imagine if I could bring some propositions from Earth Logic to this natural park, you know, how interesting and cool would be to be speaking about arts and crafts and threading and manual labor and, you know, identity and bring all these nice contexts, these concepts that are within fashion context, but to a natural space.
That sounds beautiful. I can see that happening. I can see
Whoa.
that happening. I want to be there.
I keep you updated if this plan will become reality.
Sounds great.
Very nice. So could you explain a bit more about the action research concept that you bring a lot along the material, maybe sharing a study group case example, Mathilda, that happened already?
Of course. So the basic idea why we use action research is that we don't have time to do research first and then act. Time is too short. We know that climate change, you know, we have less than a decade to really avoid catastrophic effects of climate change. So we need to explore and act at the same time. And the other part of it is that we need expertise from all types of actors. So we can't work alone in academia. We need to work side by side together with industry, citizens, media, governance, other species. And so one project we are just starting now is about imagining the idea of a local fashion government. And we're doing that in the northwest of the UK. And we are going there, and it's actually where Kate is living as well. So it works very well. That's where she's from. And we will be exploring together with other people from industry, from media, citizens, and together with other species, and explore how can we imagining disputing fashion, sharing research in a way, and resources in a way that really shows care. So that's an example where we also, research has found that when we explore in this way, involving everybody who has a stake from the beginning, they are obviously also more committed to the solutions. So it is a way both to speed up the process, if you will, but also to make sure that what we explore and find out together is relevant for people who are going to use it, which is very important, and other species as well.
Very nice. Thanks for sharing that, Mathilda. And throughout the material, you present checklist questions at the end of each landscape chatter, to be more exact, that can be applied by educators and leaders spreading Earth Logic's message. So, for example, during this experience that will be happening, that you just explained, will you be using these checklist questions in order to propose dynamics, in order to propose debates? Could you speak a little bit more of this format?
Of course. I mean, we hope that people can use the checklists and the ideas in a very hands-on way. So integrate them in practices like a research meeting or a board meeting or a student situation. And it can be that you start with care, for example, as a provocation in a lesson. What can that be? Or it can be that you take the whole of landscape of plural to kick off a design process. So we hope that really that, and we have seen this happening as well, that people take it in a kind of hands-on way and then adopt it. And then we also work with some values, and I think that's really important as well. So when we think about a project like the one we're doing now, so how are we making sure that we are really observing grounded imagination, for example, so that we don't go off and we are too fanciful, and that means being really rooted where we are. So an important principle there is to really understand what a place is about, to learn from whoever is there, people and other species, and to stay with the local conditions. That's kind of having a dialogue with these principles throughout, both when you plan and also when you evaluate, something we see as important.
Very nice. I have the material open here in my screen, and let me see if I can find any one of these interesting questions that you put at the end of each chapter. Drivers for change. Let's see, language, flavor of the life. So, for example, explore the role of a languaging ombudsperson in all organizations to support, disseminate, evaluate Earth Logic language. Create curriculum for professional communicators on Earth Logic language, the ethics of care for Earth, care for people, fair, share, and non-violent communications. Use processes of creating language to critique unsustainable practices and strategies and create Earth Logic alternatives with transdisciplinary groups. Explore languages specifically for inviting people and communities new to sustainability in engaging ways. So it's very nice that the material inspires, brings concepts, brings some critiques, especially at the beginning of the material. Not critiques, but I would say arguments to make us reflect deeply on the sad solutions that we are seeing around today, and that you mentioned as techno-centered solution that we may be reflecting a little bit if they are actually long-term solutions and not only technological-based solutions, right? And then after bringing these reflections, you propose ways of doing, ways of bringing people together. So this format is very nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. I think what we really wanted to do is to make sure that we emphasize that the expertise is out there. We all have a lot of knowledge and understanding about what good lives can be like. And if we, instead of positioning people in companies and other roles as kind of passive consumers, but instead say, hey, there are so many interesting things to think about. What kind of language should you be using in your organization? What would help you? We know that there is so much imagination, and we don't have the expertise about the details of organizations. Organizations are experts, but there can be questions, we think, that can support bringing that to the forefront rather than only sort of looking at checklists or, you know, that kind of more technically oriented. So we really want to stimulate that kind of discussion and criticality that we know is there and can be put to good use everywhere.
Yes, very nice. And a little more about the material application. In regards of how do you and Kate suggest that these material application initiatives are shared with you? So you told in the beginning that you are already communicating with other researchers and audience that is reading the material. So how do you propose that people throughout Brazil, for example, get in touch with you in order to share what they have been experiencing with Earth Logic, and also in regards to the format of how they can share these experiences?
Thank you. And first of all, yes, please get in touch. We really want to hear what you're doing. And you can do that by emailing us or by sending things to us through the website. But we also thought that it'd be really nice to offer kind of open garden sessions that we thought would be a bit like seed swapping. So imagining doing some workshops where we can really learn from people around the world. So we will announce when that's possible. But in the meantime, please email us, send us pictures, send us your questions, and say if you'd be interested to participate in a more of a sharing session. And what we have realized during the digital workshops is that there is so much excitement in the community. So bringing people together from different parts of the world, we've had such amazing conversations, and we really want to continue that because it's magical, and we're learning so much with that.
Mm-hmm. And by the chance, are there plans to share these experiences collected with the public in a short-term, medium-term
Absolutely. Yes, there is. And one of the plans we have is to facilitate the kind of Earth Logic corridors. You know, wildlife corridors, they make it easy for species to sort of move between freely and connect. And we want to create this Earth Logic corridor of practices of work that's going on around the world, so that we can see all these different initiatives that don't rise to the top because they're not as big brands and stuff like that, but collectively so much is going on in so many places. So we think giving that visibility will also really give power and show the many ways you can do things depending on where you are, and it will be very different depending on, you know, place and what kind of organization you are. So we will definitely keep you posted, and if you have ideas how this can best happen, you please let us know as well.
Yeah, super nice. Maybe, for example, to build an exhibition like in a gallery form to show this experience in a also pictorial way and multimedia way.
Absolutely. And I think the visual is so important. We want to see it all, don't we?
Super nice.
See the people and see.
We look for that. So going a little bit further on the concepts of the material, you cite throughout Earth Logic that localism is recognized as a central aspect of sustainability that will solve at root many of society's problems, such as indiscriminately sourced raw materials, standardized products, intensive commercialization, economies of scale, and long-distance trade. And then you ask the reader on one of the checklists about who in a fashion system focused on growth and increase would be agents of change in localism. So Mathilda, will these agents relate to initiatives that, for example, will actively choose to remain small?
Yes, I mean, we think that this can apply to different types of organizations. And a really important part of localism is the feedback that's possible. When things grow too big, it's very difficult to maintain the relationships and to have overview. And you know, I'm sure, all the focus on transparency, that is because the chains are so big, it's literally impossible to have an overview. And so local is rooted in conditions and needs of a place, and it is there to authentically empower local actors. So for a brand to be local, it would really need to give some kind of autonomy and power to the local. And an important part of that is the size of an economy. So for those relationships to still be maintained and be meaningful, and for there to be sort of benefits to everybody involved, it's hard to see this as really big global change, it's harder to understand how that could be, because you want to make sure that makers and users are connected. So yes, it could also be global brands, but at the end of the day, you need to make sure that all actors benefit, that they know each other, that there is a kind of connection, and also the appropriateness of scale. So it's still always about less for most of us, at least in the global north, which means bringing activities down to the scale where they fit within Earth's limits. And so long as that works, lots of actors can be involved, but those limits need to be to be acknowledged.
Yeah,
so in that sense, it's easier for smaller to start small and grow to the appropriate scale. And I think that appropriate scale, that will be something we talk about a lot. So not as big as possible, not necessarily as small as possible either, but the scale that is the right to meet the needs and to respect the limits.
And do you think that this quote that is almost like, not a cliche, but it's super widely spoken, that we have to act locally, thinking globally. Do you think that this relates to what Earth Logic wants to bring? That it has to do with developing a new kind of intelligence, right? A new kind of perception, you know, that you value the local area, the local resources, the local culture and traditions, but you are connected in a wider and macro way with the collective that we call Earth, right? So that's this dynamic that you bring is interesting, because you speak a lot about the value of local, but within an Earth logic, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, today we know Earth. We have Earth as we have seen Earth from space, the pictures and stuff. So we know that it's not just where we are, but we really think about local as rooting to rise as well, or rooting and rising. And without rooting, without seeing where you are, without finding the local connections, without defining your own values and interests, without identifying your local community, it's very hard to rise, as in to have the confidence, to have the power, and also to have the humility. So we think that the local rooting is really important, to be kind of really speak in an embodied way, and to do action that is aware of limits. Then you can also work with many locals, so many locals can be in touch and do amazing things globally, but that rootedness and in touchness that comes from commitment to a place and a community, engaging with its limits and possibilities, we think is really important.
Very interesting. And from this rooting, you suggest that a virtual cycle would repercute. And I bring this example on this next question. You ask the reader to imagine a former global fashion monopoly that establishes a new local governance and starts looking at specific needs and opportunities of its surroundings and building local caring relationships. This led the company to stop selling clothes in some places and start providing fashion services like renting, sharing, styling, qualification, because the connection with other organizations around this company became stronger. So could you comment on this company's transition? Now we can say that it transitioned to a hybrid business model. And I very believe that this more complex business models that will attend different populations' needs and local and cultural needs can be an exciting possibility for the future of fashion.
Absolutely. And so since we wrote Earth Logic, we have thought a lot about how we take the ideas to action. And one of the ways to think about that we think is helpful is the principles of gardening, because we started to make landscapes and now we don't want to go in as consultants necessarily. We want to share gardening and learn together. And if we start with gardening principles, what this global fashion monopoly would do would be to start by paying attention to the soil. And what we mean by that is okay, what is here? What are the particular needs and opportunities in this specific place? What does this place have to offer in skills? Who needs a job? What are the other species here? What skills need to be developed? Are there particular surpluses here? So maybe there are loads of people have tons of clothes in their attics that could come to good use. And then this company would see, so how can we be an intermediary in this place? So what does this place need to match surplus with needs, to bring skills together in a beautiful and useful way to stay with the limits? So that would be, it would start from observing the soil in this way, what's there. And then this company would also ask itself, so who are the other species here? We are one species as a company, but we have other species here as well. And some of them will be maybe a charity, they will be a local school, a local library. There'll be other companies as well, maybe operating in a much smaller way. And this global company would have to think, we need to work in such a way that all these species here can have good lives and work well. So how big a space can we occupy so that they also have the space they need? Some of them are really small, some of them we only see at night, like bats or moths, but they all need their space. So we need to observe the limits of us as well. We can't take too much. We need to be. So that kind of attention to limits, and not just to, or not at all to economic growth. It's a different logic. It's the Earth logic of working in a particular space instead.
Very nice, beautiful. And this can also bring positive repercussions for example, the concepts that fashion companies launch to the audience. We see that they have a lack of truthfulness with them, right? So you cite throughout the material that it doesn't have to do anymore with a shallow branding or to speak about artisanship as a commoditization, right? So at the moment, this company starts to look after these communities that are around these animals. They won't use the specific animal as a stampa just for the sake of the aesthetics of the animal, but in order to tell stories that are happening in action, in reality, right? To speak about relationships that are going on further this aesthetic concept, right?
Absolutely. And to constantly think about users not as passive consumers, but as people with creativity that can engage in care rather than this kind of passive stance of buying more. So that's a very different relationship, and it seeds other different relationships as well.
Very nice, very nice. So you also mentioned, Mathilda, that community, as we are speaking already here, is an important aspect of moving to less, and that mobilizing communities to work with less is critical to building resilience to withstand the respective pressures. So, and also that a reduction in scale can be accompanied by an increase in the quality of fashion experiences. And this is very interesting. And then I make a proposition for reflection here. How these community-based references essentially differ from what the luxury market offers to smaller groups of people. So how would you bring to us a reflection about, you know, the difference about this concept?
I think it is very much in from kind of passive use to active care. So seeing customers not as remote or sort of separate consumers of luxury, but instead this building of relationship and looking at how we learn to be more confident in fashion choices and how we learn to be more creative. But I think there's a bigger part of this as well, because it's not just the relationship between the company and the user. There's also social media, you know, all these different things. And we know that young people who have different social contexts and that are really involved in something that's kind of more values-based, could be a cycle club, it could be a church, it could be anything really. But if you have that values-based context, you are more resilient to peer pressure when it comes to overconsumption and status anxiety. I think that goes for adults too. So I think it's really important that we cultivate a diversity, not just in our wildlife, but we also try to look at our social contexts as needing diversity so that we can develop resilience. Because it can be hard to say, no, I'm not buying anything. No, I'm not going on holiday. No, I'm doing this instead, or we're choosing this kind of life. And then we need other people around us that we can share values with and express our fears to, and so that we build relationships that are also about care. And sometimes I can feel that social media can be so fast. It's hard to have that reflection sometimes. So I think we need to also, when we post something, that's also adding to consumption. You know, we need to act with care in all these situations to help everybody feel good about themselves and about their choices and stay curious.
And also think in this aspect and with this perspective that we're speaking about a collectivity that even though remains small, is not exclusive or even excludent, right? It has affluent dynamics, and it remains small because the relationships that are there are so strong that people are very, it's coherent, like the relations are coherent and are exchanging in a fluent way. And when we speak about, I meant the luxury market, they sell an idea of exclusivity, but that doesn't bring this intimacy and this trust together sometimes, right? It's something very ephemeral. That doesn't create bonds, right? So you spoke about this bond creating within these groups and community and companies and clients, right? So I think that the whole idea is to bring more deepness to the relations, right? In order also to reach this resourcefulness that you mentioned on this excerpt that communities can build, right? And also, for example, in order to, you can purchase, let's say, like an expensive garment that took a lot to be made, but then after you purchase it, you can exchange it with some friend, or you can lend it for a while. So it's a a more diverse way to relate within this collectivity. Right?
Absolutely. And also there are other fashion activities as well. So I think this thing of learning together, sharing texts on fashion, sharing images, making things together, sharing clothes. There are so many activities beyond the shopping, wearing, disposing we can do. And not least learning. So learning more about histories, learning more about diversity, learning more about culture. a lot of the novelty kind of kick we get from fashion, I think that learning can give us. Being in learning is a wonderful thing, and there is no limits. We can't continue growing the fashion sector, but growing our inner planets and growing our learning, that is endless. We can always do that. That's hopeful, I think.
Yeah, super rich, very nice. And inspired by another excerpt, which is, imagine when the words for being fashion are as rich, nuanced, and fragrant as the plants in a wildflower field. Could you describe a visual image that represents Earth Logic's message in action to you? So a little game here for us to exercise this widened sense of communicating fashion.
Oh, thank you for that question. I think we have to go with the garden, and we really think about fashion as needing lots of different species working together. And in a field like the wildflower field, there would be different species. They would be supporting each other. So one will be giving shade, and then one will be giving these beautiful colors that attract pollinators. They would have different kinds of nutrients to offer. Some come out at night, some different times of the year, and they all are bound to the particular aspects of the local place, and particular to the place. And also, this kind of way of looking at fashion would also question what we see as beautiful, because obviously there would be weeds, there would be flowers that are losing their petals, that are aging, but life in all its forms is beautiful. So when we see life as part of a bigger ecology, and fashion as a bigger ecology, we can also appreciate blossoming and life in lots of different forms. And that, we think, is also a really important part of the Earth Logic message, to value plurality, really for the sake of diversity in its own right, and that is something that has a lot to give us, and also that we learn from. That is a really important part of life.
Oh, wonderful, Mathilda, very nice. And do you have any other inspiring contribution here in regards, for example, the place you live, even though the last year we've been struggling with this worldwide pandemic, but would you have an example of a store or a group that you can reach in your region where you live in the UK, that it's also bringing this flavor of community, and is a place that inspires you to rethink the fashion model? Like a fixing store, or like some place that shows to you, brings to you that there's hope. Yes,
absolutely. I mean, I love the charity shops where I live. They are amazing. But I think one of the really beautiful meetings I've had this year was with a group of teenagers from different parts of the world, but they were living in Sweden. And we had this conversation about care, and we were talking about, could we imagine that we were looking after clothes as if they were pets instead? What would that mean? And they said, oh, okay, if my new shirt was like a dog, I would show it around the house. I would introduce it to my parents and my friends. I would like it in a different way. And they also super fast got this idea of paradigm change. So we were talking about the kaleidoscope, with the kaleidoscope, this toy, and you turn it and you get new pictures, new patterns. And they said, well, the beads are the same, but you see new patterns. And that's exactly what we think of Earth Logic. It's the same world, but we can see new patterns. And that kind of working with I think that's the potential I see of working with different communities, that every time we see the world a bit differently. And that can be, you know, a chat in a charity shop or with a group of teenagers. But there is so much to learn about what Earth Logic, what fashion can be in those encounters. And they are more important than what the shop offers or something like that, because you can't sort of buy Earth Logic, but you can learn with it and develop the ideas in that kind of way, I guess.
Yeah, amazing. Super nice to hear this experience, Mathilda. And interesting, this connection with a garment and a pet, right? Like how to relate different with our clothes and garments in order to build this idea of care, of our relationship with them, right? And to ways of exercising this concept.
Absolutely. Right? I think that's right. It's exactly like that, exercising. Like we need to always stretch and rehearse and practice. So we have to practice these ideas. And I think sometimes people are scared of what's complex, but we need to stay with the ideas and think about and try what can care be. So stay with that trouble. It's as Haraway would say, not sort of think, oh, it's too difficult. We can do it. It takes a bit of practice, but we can think in new ways. And I see that all the time. That's very nice. Everybody can think in new ways. That's for sure. And want to as well.
Jättebra. Mathilda. Tack så mycket.
Tack så mycket.
Yeah. So thank you a lot, Mathilda, for this conversation. And I invite everyone that is watching here to download Earth Logic's material. We are going to put the link for the download on the description of the video. And so thank you again, Mathilda. Hopefully we will meet in person very soon. And in the name of Brasil Eco Fashion Week, I super hope that this material can reach the hearts of many Brazilians with this Portuguese launch, and we will do all our best to help spreading the word about Earth Logic. Okay.
We so much look forward to learning with you, because we know there will be so many exciting things coming from your encounter with Earth Logic. Most things about Earth Logic we don't know yet, so we will learn with you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Super nice, thank you. E queria agradecer a todos que estão assistindo a gente, que acompanharam os painéis desse dia aqui no Brasil Eco Fashion Week, e convido vocês a seguirem acompanhando a gente pelas plataformas do evento, e que em breve serão divulgadas novidades sobre a edição oficial do evento no segundo semestre. Então, uma boa noite a todos e até a próxima. Uhul! Thank you, Mathilda.